Nearly got a try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. As always, my name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm easy to find on Blue Sky @ofscrum, and you can always just drop an email to the scrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, it was another overly full schedule this weekend, so let's just dive right into it. So, starting as always with current updates, the only thing to really report this week was I finally got to go see my partner's latest show. So it's a new piece called The Great Reveal. It's produced by the Lyric Stage Company here in Boston. It's a dramatic comedy sort of centered around a gender reveal party, brought back huge Josh Adams vibes from those crazy early days of COVID. But I mean, it was so good, and she was absolutely phenomenal, as always. The funniest line for me is a bit when she sort of comes out on stage and she sees her husband character just doing something really weird, and she just looks at him and goes, "Don't tell me what you're doing," which immediately re-raises the question, does art imitate life, or does life imitate art?
It's too good! It's too good! People have to know!
Well, Isa, it seemed like good news this week as I randomly came across an article about how my local rugby club, Marlborough RFC, recently launched a new initiative called Try for Change. This program aims to introduce rugby to underprivileged youth in the area, offering free training sessions and equipment, the article said. Naturally, this is one of the pitfalls of living in New England. Almost all of our cities and towns are named after cities and towns in England, and sure enough, there is no local rugby club here. Marlborough RFC is, of course, in Wiltshire in the UK, and it's hard to imagine this program being beneficial to any disadvantaged youth near me. I guess that means this week's news is we really need a rugby club. So that brings us, of course, to our reviews. Let's get into it. This weekend featured a veritable smorgasbord of action. Once again, we'll, of course, start with the internationals. That means this week, the Women's Six Nations. This, of course, is a competition I fully support, but have a really hard time enjoying. The Red Roses, they're like the Leinster of women's rugby, except for the titles that they win. As I've said many times, I just can't have fun while watching them. So, and that's despite being keenly aware of how damn good they are. This weekend, Italy, they fell short in Parma against France, a team seemingly determined to do just enough and then add a little bit to puff up the scoreline. They haven't been as good as I'd imagined this year. Their attack looks anemic and confused to me, but they still had more than enough in the tank on Saturday. Final score, Italy 21, France 34, with both Romain Ménager and Marine Ménager getting over the line for tries. How cool is it to have twins scoring? By the way, shout out to Hattie, from whom I indirectly learned via Hugh that this was the third time twins had scored in the same game. Great stat, although I don't know who the other ones are and would love to know. Anyway, as predicted here, and by anyone who's ever watched the sport, Scotland were ground into a fine paste by England, 9-1. Abby Dow added a brace just in the final 7 minutes to really rub it in, while Lisa Thompson was the only scorer for the visitors. If I had to find a bright spot, I guess you could point to turnovers one, where Scotland held the edge with 8 to England's 5, but they were all too happy to just give the ball right back once they'd won it. Final score 59-7, and Scotland haven't beaten their southern neighbors since 1999. Whew. Anyway, the match I was looking forward to was Wales versus Ireland. Wales came out firing with, I think it's Karis Cox, scoring an early try. Ireland, however, they were not messing around. Aoife Wafer was everywhere, giving her team a 21-7 lead at the intermission. Second half saw Ireland continue their dominance. Wall grabbing her second, securing the bonus point. Hannah Bluck, again, I think it's Bluck, but I kind of want to say Bluke. I think it's Bluck. She managed a consolation try, but Ireland's player of the match, Aoife Wafer, sealed the deal with her second try. Final score, a very decisive 40-14 victory for Ireland. At the start of this tournament, I talked to Rugby Julia, among others, to wonder out loud, whether the improvements that we had seen from Ireland last year were permanent, if they were actually going to stick. And you know what, with 1 weekend to go, and that's of course a fixture that sees them matching up against a paper thin Scotland, it's looking like we are starting to have our answer. Anyway, it is an incredible turnaround, and what a story. Meanwhile, over in the URC, Friday night saw Edinburgh hosting the Sharks. I was looking at the team sheets ahead of time, and I wondered if this might be the end of rugby in Edinburgh. The team that came up from Durban was just a murderer's row, but the home team, they started really strong, dominating possession and territory. They struggled to turn these things into points, and when they did, I mean, is there a more Edinburgh moment ever than James Lang getting a crazy acrobatic try only to hurt himself by falling onto one of the flags? Anyway, 10-6 was the score at the break. There was a confusing bit later on as a silly little fracas sort of erupted, resulting in Skinner and Etzebeth both going to the sin bin. But when play resumed, the scoreboard said Sharks were down 2 players, but they didn't actually say why or who. Very odd. To be fair, a few minutes later, we got a shot of Lacanio Am sitting next to Etzebeth on one of those rickety little chairs. So there you go. Anyway, silly side note. As Andrew Brace called for a scrum reset in the dying moments, he informed the teams, let's not start playing games, which is a pretty funny thing to say when you're like about to finish a game. In any event, I'm not an Edinburgh supporter, but even so, what a crushing, depressing, horrible way for the match to end. I'm not even joking. Like as the Sharks were driving with only a minute left, I said out loud, what will the clock read when they win this? My guess was 80 minutes and 5 seconds. I was off by a good 15 seconds as Makazole Malpimpi hammered down the killing blow in the corner at 20 seconds past full time. Like, what must life be like for Edinburgh supporters right now? A crippling, devastating, perhaps season-ending defeat for the home team, 17-18. Holy cow. Anyway, Saturday started off with the Lions taking on Benetton. I wish I knew what the heck happened in this one. I missed the entire first half, and when I tuned in, Benetton were more than doubling up their host despite being down 2 players. Did the Lions get cursed by an evil wizard in the first half? Anyway, I realized I didn't really recognize more than a face or two in Lions uniforms, so I guess they kind of threw in the towel before things even kicked off. Strange game, all in all. Benetton winning in Joburg 31-42. Lest we forget, it was Judgment Day in Wales, which meant a doubleheader at the Principality, starting with Ospreys facing Cardiff. It was very exciting right from the start. Both teams seemed possessed of new energy, new life when they face off against each other. Cardiff, perhaps driven by the chaos and emotion of the past week, really started to click, and they managed a bonus point try before 35 minutes had even gone by. Cardiff failed to score another point until right at the death when they poured in 2 bang-bang tries to really rub some salt into the Ospreys' wounds. The first half of Judgment Day would go to the nominal visitors, 19-36. After that, the Dragons were looking to get their second win of the season via an upset over the Scarlets. Side note, in a microcosmic indicator of the state of Welsh rugby, they pointed out that while the roof of the Principality was open, it was actually supposed to be closed, but they couldn't close it due to a software error. Yeah. Like, I'm just picturing an angry Welsh engineer of some kind, like furiously clicking a mouse with one hand while gesticulating with the other, trying to coax the roof like over by yard. Regular listeners will be entirely unsurprised that I was hoping for a Dragons win. Hugh, if you're listening, it's just because they were massive underdogs. Quote, well, the sun is trying to stream through here, unquote, said the Cobs, again encapsulating more than they would have wanted in a broadly metaphorical sense. Dragons, they held a 1-point lead as we began the second half. Surely a guarantee things would go the other way. Dragons' discipline looked like it might again be their undoing, but they had doubled their advantage as the final quarter got underway. I wrote down in the old notes, quote, how long will Dragons wait till they give this one away, unquote, and the answer was 73 minutes. 23-31 was your final score. A boost for Scarlet's hopes in the long run, but I mean, not a great game overall. Another stomach punch, though, for beleaguered Dragons fans. There's a joke here about them being be-unioned instead of beleaguered, but I'm just going to leave that one completely alone. We also had a crucial Stormers versus Connacht clash. I was curious how my guys would react after their coach ignominiously departed after their flushing out of the Challenge Cup last week. Stormers got a try bonus point long before halftime, thanks to a hat trick from Sacha Feinberg. I can't believe I did that. Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu. SFM? Can we call him SFM? Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu. Kinda got it. That was terrible. I apologize. My Connacht, though, they did match that one just after 40 minutes. It was 26-24. Jack Carty having a bit of a mystery off the boot. Look, I can say Jack Carty. Duh. When we were getting ready for what looked like it was going to be a thrilling finish, the visitors got an equalizing try right as the clock went red, leaving it up to Jack Carty to steal us a win at the death. Keep in mind, his last 3 conversions had gone bad miss, and timed out, so I wasn't holding my breath. But that was when the TMO piped up and pointed out obstruction. Try waved off. Connacht lose again. Oy vey with this team already. 35-29 was your gut-wrenching final score in Cape Town. Munster at home for the Bulls looked juicy, and quick shout out to the incredible Patricia Vieira, who was there for the match and still found time to send me a lovely postcard from La Rochelle, where she was last weekend. Patricia, you absolutely made my day, perhaps week, perhaps month, and I'll work on how I say that Sacha guy's name for you. Another game you wouldn't want to write home about necessarily, but side note, have you noticed the increase in sort of overall chippiness, especially in URC at this time of year? Like, there's a lot more of the, this is your jersey, no, this is my jersey, kind of, silly little non-fights. But I don't know. It makes me feel like that's an early frost, like a harbinger of the difficult times that lie ahead for the eventual top 8. Anyway, an incredible game, tied at lucky 13 with a half hour to go as the heavy rains came and went. With a quarter hour to go, it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, with the ref explaining patiently to the captains why this game, basically he was explaining why this game is ridiculous. Neither captain even pretending to understand. And then uncontested scrums the rest of the way. By the way, 15 minutes of uncontested scrums when we have 15 players on each side. That way madness lies. So an incredible ending. Munster driving, but a freak turnover on the 82nd minute closed the lid. The throngs of Thomond Park suddenly silenced, and I think we're going to need to check in on the standings at the end of this bit. 13-16 was your rainy day total. Wow. Anyway, Leinster, they simply dropped a giant cartoon-style safe full of gold bricks onto the festering corpse of Ulster, winning 41-17 in Dublin. Zebre Parma, they hope to continue their role as spoilers for Glasgow, but the Warriors were just barely up to it this weekend, winning a match wholly devoid of charisma, 6-14. And you know what? I would very much like those 2 hours back, please and thank you. So, after a tempestuous weekend, Leinster and Glasgow still occupy, you can tell I switched the letters there. They still occupy the top 2 spots, with the Bulls and Sharks in 3rd and 4th, Benetton a semi-surprising 5th, followed by Cardiff, Munster, and the Stormers. Scarlets, Ulster, and Edinburgh are within reach, but after that, I mean, there could be some sort of magic math, I guess, but it seems very unlikely to me that Connacht or Ospreys or Lions could get in. Pretty sure the lights have already gone off for Zebre, as they did a few weeks ago for Dragons. Only 2 teams outside the top 8 have positive points differentials, by the way, Scarlets and Edinburgh, if you're keeping track at home. Anyway, over in the Premiership, Friday night kicked off with Newcastle Falcons against Northampton Saints. There was no way I was ever going to watch that one. Are you even kidding? The home team fell behind 10-28 by halftime, but roared back to only lose by a single point, 34-35. On Saturday, the stupid Exeter Chiefs lost at home to Bath, despite holding them scoreless in the second half, 24-26. My Harlequins, they continued their run of poor form, getting crushed by Sale Sharks, 29-43. Saracens also held their guests Gloucester scoreless in the second half, but used that stretch to triple their own score and come away winners 36-14. Finally, Sunday finished off the round with Bristol Bears hosting Leicester Tigers, where the Tigers won easily to leapfrog the Bears into second place, by the way, 19-36 at Ashton Gate. So, switching all the way down to Super Rugby Pacific, some fantastic action starting on Friday with the Crusaders against the Blues. It was easy to guess who the favorites would be. Crusaders had won 6 of their last 7 against the Blues and had beaten them 13 of the 14 times overall in Christchurch. Sebu Reece was 1 try away from equaling TJ Perinair's all-time try record in Super Rugby, but it was Tamaiti Williams getting the first score before 2 minutes had even gone by in the miserable conditions. Both teams really struggled. We were all tied up with under 10 minutes to play, with the clock well into the red. The home side nabbed a scrum penalty, and it was James O'Connor coming through with the kick to win it 25-22, a heartbreaker for the visitors. The Fijian Drua versus Waratahs was next up from steamy Lautoka. Both teams desperate for a win. The Taz winless on the road, and the Drua only good at home. Side note, I mentioned it a while back. Did you know that Isaiah Armstrong-Ravula's uncle is Richie Mwanga? Explains a lot, right? Anyway, the Drua led 13-7 approaching halftime. They had won their last 7 matches at Churchill Park, so things were looking good. On the other hand, the visitors looked like they were slowly figuring things out, and eschewing the points might be a decision the Fijians would come to regret. A funny little bit, the Taz would have scored 2 touchdowns in the NFL with a leap over the top and a side swipe, both going out of bounds. I mean, that equals 0 tries in this game. So, Anyway, the Drua, they added a little salt there right at the end, waiting until the clock read 79-59 before saying, yeah, we're kicking 3. And it was the win they needed, 21-14. Moana Pacifica were without Artie Savia, but saw Julian Savia making his first appearance of the season as they took on the Brumbies. I don't know if the weather was a factor, but the crowds stayed away in droves this week. This has been Moana's best season in their history. Where are the fans? It was bizarre. Anyway, no points from either team in the first half until Corey Toole showed those Jets to streak in right at the hooter. It was a meager 0-5 at the break. Bit of a shocker for the team that came in averaging more points than any other this season, 36.4, as the Brumbies just walked all over them, shutting them out 0-24. Oof. Saturday gave us the Chiefs versus Highlanders. You could tell the comms were imagining the same thing I was, a massive crushing beatdown by the Chiefs. One positive note, last week I highlighted former Free Jack Taniela Filimone, and boy, did he deliver in his first start at the super level, getting a brace in his 74 minutes to help defeat the Drua. And here they were highlighting him at the beginning of the contest as the player to watch. Super cool. Anyway, Amoni Narawa, he was on a 6-game streak of not scoring a try, something that hadn't happened for him since 2020. But a good antidote for that turned out to be my Highlanders defense, or lack thereof. He was first on the board about 10 minutes in. Side note, and I can't believe I hadn't clocked this before, Ben Smith, or Ben Smuth, is in the coaching box for my Highlanders. Like, it feels like that should give us a nice boost, right? Though I haven't exactly seen it yet. So it was a very reasonable 13-10 at halftime, but say it with me, the Highlanders failed to score in the second half and inevitably lost very heavily, 46-10, making it 0-4 for the teams that I support this week. Just not a fun weekend so far. Finally, the Force were back in Perth to face the struggling Hurricanes. Guess what? It was our first Super Point match of the year, or at least I think so. They called it Golden Point last year. This time they were saying Super Point, but either way, it's just sudden death. I don't know why we're coming up with new, dumber terms. Like, just use sudden death. Why point? You can't score a single point. Why? Anyway, in the end, the question was moot. It was a 17-all draw. I was proud of the players for saying how annoying that is. There's a reason we don't generally do that here in the States. A massive womp wah, and I think that's my third of the weekend. Anyway, final side note for this week. Last episode, I casually said something about how they had fixed the playoff structure in Super Rugby, so it actually made sense. And that might have been the most wrong thing I've ever said, except for Sacha's name just earlier. They did listen to all the criticism. They did make changes, but the changes they made seem to have been drawn up by the Mad Hatter. They've managed to make it A, far, far more complicated, and B, entirely nonsensical. Like, they made a video to explain the new format. I've linked it in the show notes. I dare you to watch it, especially with the sound on. Oh my gosh. Anyway, moving on to the top 14, Saturday featured Po versus Bordeaux Begla. I haven't really done games of the week this time, in case you didn't notice, but this was probably the top of the list in my head, at least. Ubebe fighting battles on multiple fronts, internationals needing rest time, the stereotype of not caring on the road, combined with the facts this was a prime opportunity for Po to do a little poaching. That was a bad pun, and I didn't even intend it. In the end, they would come close, way too close for me, but my Border Beagles pulled it out 22-26 with maybe like a 70% squad. So the theme this year, I'm told, for Ubebe is come hell or high water, and they keep winning anyway. I love it. Elsewhere, Cast, they hammered Van 32-13. La Rochelle barely edged Bayonne 29-28. Woo. Lyon went palindromic versus Parole City 32-23. Perpignan beat Racing 92 28-24, just to make me feel even worse about Connacht losing last week. Like, why have I even chosen these teams? Anyway, Toulon took care of business at home versus Clermont 31-24. And Sunday's big match, of course, was Stade Francais versus Toulouse, a match that probably looked exciting before the season started. All God's bless them. The drink boxes made it a close final scoreline, 21-27. And I got to say, this could have been the one that got away for them. Anyway, back here at home, we had WER. Sadly, my Banshees, they lost their first game of the year. All the more painful because it was to the stupid New York team that nobody likes, 20-24. We really, really had a shot there right at the end. Like, I had faith. I was out of my seat, fist pumping, but it was not to be. It was nice to see a really big crowd there at Fort Quincy too. But, you know, this is an issue because the next game is at a new stadium in Rhode Island. And the link to buy tickets as I was writing this weren't even on sale, thanks to the original supporter of the pod, John. John pointed out to me this morning that the tickets have gone on sale. The remaining issues are about parking, where you kind of, when you click on the link for parking, it's like, here are some places that you can walk to within 20 minutes. And it's like, can you? Anyway, meanwhile, over in the MLR, my Free Jacks continued the winless streak of stupidly named Anthem by beating them roundly on the road 6-26, including a pair of tries from the stalwart Paula Balacana and another one for Jedzilla. This team is starting to click. But we do have a tough stretch coming. For those who don't know, the MLR consolidated its schedule this year to accommodate the international schedule in some way. I don't really pretend to understand it, but it basically means we have NPC-style storm weeks this season. And so after this Friday night match, we're looking at a Tuesday fixture with LA coming to town. Anyway, elsewhere, I was pleased to see the Seattle Seawolves take down the Chicago Doggy Dogs 28-22. Stupid DC lost to the Sharks of Miami 35-37. The Thundercats barely beat NOLA 17-15. And finally, San Diego lost again. This time to the rugby team of Latter-day Saints 18-31. Gotta say, this is not only the best year yet for MLR, it's legit exciting. Like the way it seems any team can beat any other, it's just making things really interesting. San Diego go undefeated for like 5 games in a row, and now they can't buy a win. Seattle looked hopeless, then remind us all that they were champions in the not too distant past. Houston are good, and then they lose to a crap team. Chicago, same thing. Nobody knows what's up with Utah or NOLA. Like it's just a ton of fun. Is a three-peat still on the table for us? It's hard to say. We lost Potty so early in the season, and now his replacement, Falatoi Penny, absolutely wowed everyone on debut, and boom, he gets hurt, and I can't even get people to tell me like what the timeline might be. Doesn't look good, however. So, even on an off day, though, we're at that top tier. We can hang with anyone in this competition. So, just past halfway through, things are really heating up. As you know from the music, it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck. And this week, the Diamond in the Ruck Award goes to Aoife Wafer. Ms. Wafer, your performance against Wales this past weekend was nothing short of sensational. You are a constant menace to the Welsh side with a staggering 24 carries, more than any other player on the pitch, and remarkably, more than the entire Welsh forward pack combined. These powerful runs translated into an incredible 175 meters gained, consistently breaking through the gain line, and your 2 crucial tries helped your team secure a dominant 40-14 victory. Aoife Wafer, congratulations to you, and I can't believe it hasn't happened before now. You are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done. Okay, that brings us to our updates and previews. This coming weekend, Six Nations ties a nice little bow on another season of England kicking everyone's butts. Super Rugby and MLR head into round 11. It's round 16 in the URC, round 15 in the Premiership. Nobody on earth knows what round it might be in the top 14. The WER is in full swing, and as I record this, we are only 9 days away from the Sevens Grand Final in Los Angeles. If you're looking ahead to this weekend and want to highlight a potential game of the week, please get in touch. It's always lovely to hear from you anyway. And frankly, I would love it if somebody else put in a little work for a change. That's kind of a joke. Anyway. Well, my friends, that does it for another week. So much great stuff happening. I'm already getting pretty sad, though, about some of these competitions going away. We're actually coming to the end. What is it, 3 rounds left in the URC? That pains me to my heart. But anyway, to all of you across the globe, cheers. Talk to you soon. And be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
No, it doesn't.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?